we have a lot of technical people and other career folks in our family. So my dad was always doing projects with us. And so I was able to get exposed to kind of fixing bikes and making things as a younger child. But one of the key moments for me was in high school when we had mandatory science fair, actually middle and high school. And so every single kid had to do these projects. And it's really important that that happens. Because think about English class, you learn to read and write. But a lot of times in these STEM courses, you're doing just absorbing the material or doing a lab where you know the answer, but you're not discovering or inventing and coming into that practice. So at the time, Jimmy Carter was putting solar panels in the White House. We had energy crisis, environmental crises, and I started doing science fair projects on environmental, solar, wind, phase change storage, all kinds of things. And I got to gain the confidence of doing projects myself and kind of apprentice journey mastery as you need to do in any field. So it was a really important influence to learn that technologies was for a purpose of making things better. You could work with other people and that I could do it, like the confidence that you learn from just doing it. I love working in technology because you can solve problems with extraordinary tools of our universe together with other people. Technology in its greatest form is about love. It's about discovery and curiosity and how does this all work? It's about teamwork and the community, and it's about engineering and solving and creating things that can help us with our living planet, with our health, with our community, with justice, with anything that we need to do, transportation and more. Early in my career, I'm a mechanical engineer, but I ended up going a little more towards the internet. Early in my career, I got to work at Apple Japan in Tokyo. I encourage everybody to leave your country. I worked on early smartphones, worked on the beginning of the internet in a super cool company called Planet Out that was LGBTQ focused digital media. And then I went to Google when we were really small and we grew and built so many of the products that we all use today in a collaborative way. And then I was asked to come to the White House, and I became the US Chief Technology Officer, which was a great honor. And it's one of the key things that I would share with my colleagues who are in industry is take a tour of duty into the civic world. And if you're in the civic world, take a tour of duty into industry, into nonprofit tech. Let's mix up these sectors. It's really critical. We have these strange ideas or stereotypes of what computer science and tech and STEAM are for. They're really for any topic that needs solving. And so civic tech, commercial tech, nonprofit tech, it's all really important. I had no intention to go to government. It wasn't a thing to go rotate in the government, whether it was federal as I did as US CTO or whether it was into tribal, state, local, UN, et cetera. And civic tech wasn't that big a thing in terms of a commercial area that come through APIs. And so we were lucky because President Obama at the time saw that these are the tools of our times. And of course, we have extraordinary technical people in government. We have NASA, we have the Department of Energy, we have our Defense Department, so many different teams, the IT teams across all of it. But he was noticing that in all the rooms, technical people weren't often there. They were like the help in many of the agencies and certainly in the White House team. And he wanted not only the extraordinary science advisor and Office of Science Technology Policy team, but to add an additional capability. So he added the US CTO with the science advisor in the OSTP team as two different assistants to the president. And we were able to bring over 500 people into government at the time, and even more have come, who had built Amazon and Facebook and Google and Twitter and Dropbox and all of our wonderful commercial digital network technologies. And so really encourage people to consider this career track. At the time, Alex McGilvery, who was the deputy CTO with me, who had been the general counsel of Twitter, product counsel background, really understand policy and technology as a computer scientist. He, at the time, was like, wouldn't it be amazing if this could just become normal? The new normal, you would look at a tech resume and it would have industrial experience, maybe startup experience, and it would have civic tech as a standard, as a normal, nonprofit tech, academic tech, and that we would stop having all these silos. It's really urgent. Our government, actually around the world, they're the wealthiest things. And they work on the hardest problems, much harder. I was at Google, worked on many hard problems. In the beginning of the internet, we worked on many hard problems, beginning smartphones. It's much harder as a big data problem to figure out how to make school lunch really work, how to deal with really helping all of our foster children, how to deal with national security, how to deal with much faster processing of all of our government things that keep people waiting. Like, why are the government websites so wonky? And we have beautiful, beautiful, responsive, technologies from commercial. Why not have those Americans work inside a government and vice versa in whichever country you're in, rotating your government and bring the best in class. And you get to work with the career civil servants who are extraordinary. Let's think about right now. We're in the middle of this incredibly difficult pandemic affecting all of us. And our poor civil servant colleagues are stuck with awful archaic tech running on old mainframes, COBOL. I love Grace Hopper. We love Grace Hopper. But COBOL was invented a long time ago in the beginning, and it's time to do new things. And you do that with people. It's what we want to do and also who is doing it. And so we have to have these blended teams with people who have the most modern of technologies. We don't want every doctor in government, but we would like a surgeon general or people in the CDC, right? So let's rotate a very current medical professional expert into the surgeon general piece, into the surgeon general seat, so that they can then coach on that topic together with other colleagues. They don't know more or less about what to do. They know their lane. And what was so great about going to government is I didn't have to know all these other things, but I did have to know my stuff. And when we worked together, we got the collective genius that government deserves, that the citizens deserve. The American people deserve this, and our government can be that great. And we've proven it's possible. There's lots of examples, and it's at the local level with Code for America and other people, and it's at the federal level, at the UN level. There are moments you can look at, and this is possible. We worked on a lot of different things in government. Some of them looked more like tech policy, like encryption policy, or having an open source, open data type policies. We worked a lot on capacity building the government itself, U.S. Digital Service, 18F, the IT and tech teams across to better procure wonderful technology from others. And then we worked on directly capacity building the American people, often taking a similar approach as venture capitalists do. You scout and scale. You look for Americans somewhere in this country. Somebody has already figured out, what have they done? And actually thinking about Grace Hopper and Anita B., Brenda, our leader, had already been working in Chicago on getting all children in the Chicago school districts to learn coding during their school years. And so we had launched something called CS for All. And CS for All means CS for all people and CS for all topics, any topic, justice, civic tech, as much as self-driving cars, right? And so we were able to bring together a coalition of those who already were bringing computer science to our young people in pre-K to 12 college, making sure every child in this country learns coding, computer science, and computational thinking, and then launch the CS for All programs and continue to build that coalition. So whenever we were able to find extraordinary Americans, where there were a handful who had already built something like Tech Hire with coding boot camps and Code Louisville and others who were doing it for adults, like the CS for All for youth, that was amazing. And we were able to then use kind of community organizing of innovation and the coalition building that the White House can do, the government can do, to more rapidly share those things so that many, many more municipalities, schools, people, American people could take hold of those wonderful opportunities or solutions that were there. So I think CS for All, Tech Hire, also the work we did in justice with data-driven justice and the police data initiative, opening police data, finding solutions already in our country like Camden and Miami, and getting them shared in a community of practice, which is how tech people, we create these tech meetups and all this community. I call it like the Wakanda layer of the world. And you can be in any city, town, wherever, and there's techies doing their thing. A lot of times neighbors don't know. And we need to get together, break these silos, and work on all the hard problems together. And that's why I'm so excited about having more civic tech people rotating with commercial tech, nonprofit tech, and others. It's time for this. It's the power tools of our time, and they need to be applied to all subjects, especially the hardest subjects, which are the ones government works on. Public service is full of challenges, like every day is challenges. And it's both things that you realize are issues like broadband deployment, which we know of, or something that comes up like a hurricane or some horrific thing that occurs that you must deal with, and government must always respond. And so I think there's so many things that the way that when we did our best work was when we were in deep coalition across all the different subjects, working together, especially when tech was included instead of left separate. You know, the famous example of that, it was before my time, but healthcare.gov. We're incredible people made this great policy work, legal, all this work. And then in the work to get the website going, they kind of outsourced it without having people who were super fluent in those technologies doing the purchasing. And so the architecture was just off in how that happened. And so the websites didn't work. Luckily, the silver lining of that is President Obama, Dennis McDonough, Chief of Staff, other Vice President Biden, others saw that and realized that we needed to have those people, like a Surgeon General, come into our government. Not everybody, but a handful, so that we would speak that language and be able to procure better. We want government technologies to be coming from the outside and using our wonderful industry and academy for that, but we want to make sure that we're fluent in the language when we're purchasing and deciding the architectures. So that's very, very important. For me, the challenges are always when somebody isn't really understanding what you're saying. And so there's like this impedance of what people have had in the past, our colleagues, and what you can offer, and trying to get together and show them what's possible. And I love using user-centered design. The product managers, designers, others, it's not only coders. It's a whole range of us, digital communicators. I mean, government communicates. So we need extraordinary communicators, both artistic, design, as well as technical and data science related. The thing about government is it's basically whoever shows up. And so I really encourage everybody to consider a tour of civic tech duty, whether you come through API or in person, whatever country you're in. It's the way the citizens will rise. These are extraordinary budgets, opportunities, networks of old that we can dust off and use these modern technologies to really lift people into the power that they should have as the citizens in our country. For any technologist who's considering joining government, or if you aren't, please consider. I really encourage you to do it. It'll be one of the greatest experiences you ever have. It'll be really hard. These are like bureaucratic systems and extraordinary people working on some of the hardest challenges. It's harder than commercial tech, but it's incredibly rewarding and it's incredibly important. And it's not new. You know, President Washington, Franklin, and Jefferson made a coin for the United States, the Liberty coin, the first penny in the United States. It says liberty like the coins do today, but it also said the parent of science and industry. So science and technology are related to freedom and liberty. President Lincoln, started the National Academies of Sciences. We've seen every president and every leadership team in government in our country and other countries add science and tech capability. And so these times now are about digital network technologies, user in the loop thinking, deep inclusion, diversity, equity, and inclusion. The teams that build the technology for the Americans need to be representing all Americans, and whichever country you're in, you need to represent. So really, really encourage you to come and do this at some point in your career. You'll never regret it. And also, to be fair, it brings together people from some of the greatest technical companies in the country and in the world, which means you get to basically work on an Olympic all-star team. Here in the United States and in many countries, there's been technologists in government forever, from the beginning. Some countries have more, some countries have less. It's really important to have the breadth of humanity in our skill sets in the leadership of our government and in all of our teams. So you may not have thought of being a tech person in civic tech, or a thought of being a tech person in philanthropy or in nonprofit tech, but there's no subject in the world that doesn't need great engineering ingenuity, the passion of discovery and the scientific method, and the teamwork that we can bring using digital networked tools that we have at our fingertips now, the industry just runs with, and the rest of the parts of society are not yet using at scale, although with the pandemic have really had to learn some of them. Let's accelerate as we build back better to have everybody at the table together and really pay attention to the diversity, equity, inclusion, and the climate of these teams, because everybody is welcome and everybody is needed. All skills, all capabilities are needed in civic technology. We need you. Also, in terms of the diversity, equity, inclusion of these teams, we have this super crazy stereotyping going on, that one group does tech and one group doesn't, or one group gets to be the boss and one group doesn't. And it's just, in technology, I keep this around. This is Ada Lovelace. She is the first person in the history of the world to have thought of algorithms. And she thought of them at the time of Darwin. He wrote about our origins and she wrote about our future. She said of basically AI, she said, I think we can figure out the math of the cerebrum if we think about it the way we found the math of astronomy. And the direct quote is, after that, she says, I wish to bequeath to the generations a calculus of the nervous system. So, Ada always wanted technology to be used with humanity, not replacing humanity. And civic tech is such a perfect area of giving. It's giving and discovery and solution making with the best in class of these civic government career employees, some technical and some not, that you can join and make some of the greatest contribution to humanity, because you have the distribution already and you have the colleagues who know what they're talking about. We just need to modernize. So we deeply need you, and we need everybody in America to build the technology for the Americans or whichever country you're in.